Jesus is the biggest queer icon for gays because whoever can get nailed for 3 days and still walk, amazing.
Hello. I'm Tara. I'm board member of Nelson Pride, and I want to thank you all so much for coming out here today. I want to acknowledge that we are on the unceded ancestral territory of the Sinixt, and that there are many other Indigenous peoples who have relations to this land and have since time immemorial. And I think, just saying that is great, but we got to thank you so much for coming to do something like this that directly supports Indigenous folks and Indigenous folks telling their stories. But I also want to say, I've never done anything like this before, but I put on this event it wasn't that hard. So I just want to say to everyone, if a bimbo like me can put on something like this, then I think, yeah, that's all I wanted to say, and I will now pass it on to Ella.
She took my intro? That bitch. Just kidding. Thank you so much, Tara. I appreciate that. I'm very excited to be here with Nelson Pride. For the people in the room that know me, thank you for coming. I appreciate it. For the people that don't know me, my name is Ella Lamoureux. I am Indigenous person from the Yukon. I had to think about where it was from for a moment. From the Yukon, I'm Cascadene. I also like to say that so people can know that even though I am Indigenous, I'm still a visitor to this land. This is not my ancestral territories. So I still want to exhibit that same respect everywhere I go, because once again, this is not my ancestral territories. I am a visitor to this land still. And I just want to honor that, all right? We can do that wherever we go. Such as, stop littering. If you smoke, pick up your cigarette butts, but maybe give the little tobacco as an offering to your ancestors. Because just because you're white doesn't mean you don't have ancestors. All right, I am a two-spirit individual. I call myself the two-spirit goddess from the Okanagan. Last year, I was voted top 40 under 40 for being a two-spirit advocate, as well as a voice, as well as becoming a knowledge keeper, as well as creating and endorsing safe spaces around the Okanagan. So, thank you. Denta is my podcast. For the people that don't know, it means hi, how are you? If you haven't listened to it online, please do. It's on all streaming websites, or all streaming platforms, as well as if you're a visual person, it's all on YouTube as well. Today will also be filmed, and if you want to re-watch it in the future, it'll be on Rebellious Unicorn Studios in the future. And it was a passion project of mine. It's something that came along where I really wanted to have Indigenous voices be heard, be spoken, because there's so many times where I go around into other spaces that are not Indigenous, where they still see me as someone that is historical, has passed on. They're not along. The culture's dead. And a part that really blows my mind is when people from other countries come into this country and they meet me and they say, "Oh, I really wanted to meet an Indigenous person." So I know, it just makes it seem are we taught about as being extinct in other cultures that are not in Canada? Do they hear stories of us of days gone by? Are we not talked about in the present? So it's why can't I make a podcast where we can talk to other Indigenous people and our voices can be heard and they can be seen that yes, colonization has happened. Yes, that is a huge part of our life now, but that doesn't mean that culture and us are gone. So this podcast is just an ode to my kin, to my family, to all my Indigenous brothers and sisters, to show that we're still fucking here. You know what I mean? Nothing's gone. Now, having said that, I have two amazing guests, which are local to your amazing Kootenay area, that I've got to know one of them through a bunch of events that I've been lucky enough to do in the Okanagan, and one that I've met today, and I think they are so cool. Both of them are pretty cool, and I'm very happy to get to know them even more. Can we welcome to the stage Fable and Jesse? Look at that Indigenous strut.
Love a strut.
No panic butts here. Hi, you two.
Hi.
How are you? I know I just mentioned your name to you both, but can you please introduce yourselves to these fantastic, beautiful people here?
Great. Okiniksokwa. My name is Jesse Halton. My mom brings me Piikani ancestry. My dad brings me British and Scandinavian ancestry. I moved here to the Kootenays 15 years ago. Yeah, I use they, them pronouns, and that's me in a little nutshell to start.
Welcome, Jesse. Thank you for being here.
Hi, Quay. My name is Fable. On my mom's side of the family, there's some Algonquin and French and English and a bunch of settler, and same on my dad's side, but Mi'kmaq and French, and I don't know a whole lot much else because we don't talk too much. I've lived here in the Kootenays as a guest on this land for about almost a decade. I guess we've hit a decade now. And yeah, that's kind of me. I also use they, them pronouns. Sorry.
Thank you, Fable. I should say my pronouns too. I appreciate that. I am all pronouns. I don't care what you call me as long as it's respectful. He, she, they. It doesn't bother to me. I feel that pronouns are, or gender itself is just so stupid. I never understood it, even when I was a child. And I'd be like, "You're wearing a girl shirt." I'd be like, "Who says?" Just this little 8-year-old, like being so feisty ever since I was younger. It's like, didn't know how to swear then, but if I did, I'd be using that colorful language when I was younger. Let's talk about that. Since I just brought that up, let's talk about gender.
Yeah.
Since gender is a concept that is so whitewashed in Canada, where it's so binary, but in most Indigenous cultures, there's more. Would you all like to touch a bit on that?
Yeah. I think for myself, I think my understanding of culture, of gender and sexuality, I kind of learned young, but most of what I say that I know now comes from younger people. So I'm a teacher, and I work a lot with Indigenous students and 2S and LGBTQIA plus students, and they've just taught me so much, and so I'd like to acknowledge that. And I think for me, what I've come to know about gender from a cultural perspective is that it's like I feel like I'm neither and like none and all and both and this myriad of other gender as well. So I'm still learning more about it from a Piikani or Blackfoot perspective. So I'm just working with that.
Yeah, wouldn't it be great if we went back into the olden days where gender was just not such a conversational topic? It is, and you'd have that freedom to express yourself how you feel.
Yeah.
Because I get that. I feel the same way. And most days I feel like all, and sometimes I feel like none, and I don't feel I need to put a label on it.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's a good two-spirit teaching is
Totally
that you have that agency and that right to be able to express yourself how you feel throughout your day.
Exactly.
And if we can ever get to that point where that's just how life is, can you imagine like how mentally strong everyone would be?
That would be so great.
That would be super cool. Yeah. Yeah, I know for myself, I had never really understood gender. I don't think ever. Like learning about it when I was younger. I grew up in the church, so it was very binary, very roles oriented, very like, I mean, they split off the men and the women throughout the parts of the day and all of those things. So I really grew up with that, but I never ever got it. And I also didn't really have a lot of, when I was younger, examples, because I wasn't super like well-versed in a lot of media. And so I didn't have a lot of vocabulary to describe how I was feeling or even use like some of that understanding and vocabulary to help me feel it and like name it. Like you had said, you got some from youth. I have a lot of younger siblings, and I think that was a place where a lot of that like language had come up, or just getting to like relate and learn some of that. But it's tricky. I think lots of times I feel like my gender is like a soup that I can't describe, but also it's like nothing in a way. Like it's just like, I guess I am. And I feel like gender for the most part, oftentimes when I have to relate to it, it's more like relating as being perceived as a certain gender. And I wish it wasn't that way. So yeah.
I love that you used the soup analogy because it just popped in my head. Like, no one likes broth soup. You don't want to see the bottom. You want it to be like so full of things and creamy that you just can't see into it. And it's a journey, you know? It's a journey for your taste buds as you're navigating this soup.
I do love a broth soup when I'm sick, though.
That's different.
Yeah.
There's always an exception. Amazing. All right, speaking about gender still, because I think it's such a fascinating subject, especially talking with so many different people across Canada. I can't speak on behalf of all Indigenous cultures because there's over 600 of them, but all the ones that I was speaking with too, especially to elders, because I'm lucky enough that I get to travel quite a bit within Canada and talk to a bunch of different people. There's always been in Indigenous cultures 3 to 5 genders, which I think is amazing. And for the people in the room that don't know, they usually equate them as like male, which is that's a cis person that's born male and then female. They have their native words for it. I'm whiteifying it for you all. And then that would be like lesbian, and then they have male, female, which would be a gay person. Female, male would be a lesbian, and then they have a two-spirit. So it's interesting how these terms have been around for millennia. And we've had colonization where they've taken it and separated it once again to the binary. And people that are gender diverse, I don't know how many people in the audience that are, it's such a journey, and we are in the forefront almost because we are creating a new future for people to be, for the future generations to not have to go through the shit that we've been through. How do you feel having to navigate that in a world that is progressively getting more political and there's so much backlash, especially everywhere we go? It's a heavy question. It's a heavy question. I threw it hard on you.
With a heavy question. Wow, there is that difficulty in it, kind of like navigating this sort of white, cisgender, heteronormative, dominant world of it, but also at the same time, I think when we do that and when we do step into that, it's such a beautiful celebration of who we are and, our ancestors and transcestors that have been on these lands for millennia and have been in roles in our communities for thousands and thousands of years. And for us to be able to step into that is just like, it's huge, right?
Yeah, it's empowering.
And it's empowering, and there's responsibility, and there's, I think it's for me, it's just a beautiful space to be in.
I think life would feel like very different not stepping into that. I think for a long time, not having stepped into that made me really, depressed, sad, and in a lot of ways, seeing other people out in the community and having community to go to has been I think I've felt very fortunate in that way. I can't imagine how hard it would have been if I had known nobody or had no examples. So being able to, I think, be a part of or be some of that visibility feels good. And especially in a time where stuff is very politically charged, I think we need more of that, more than ever, really.
That's right. Visibility does matter quite a bit. And us as queer people, we know that. We need to be seen and be heard so we can make some positive change. I am now thinking about how femininity is seen as weak because we are all AMAB, assigned male at birth, Had to spell that out. So we grew up, in a sense, a place of privilege because we were seen as male, so things were not necessarily easier, but expectations were set for our gender. And I'm just putting my experience onto this, and you can comment on that if you want, about growing up as a feminine person and not fitting into these roles that society tells you have to fit, and then growing up, because I had a lot of shame, a super ton. People that may have heard this podcast before, heard me talk about this before, shame of being feminine, growing up in a world where femininity is seen as weak. And I had to grow with this shame into a place where I had to mask who I was at such a level where I was unhappy. Things didn't seem right. And then I remember growing up, and then I'm gonna talk about myself for a little bit. I know this is for you all here, where I found drag, and then I didn't want to do it for 3-4 years because I kept telling myself that is so shameful that I'm going to present myself in such a feminine way. And then I convinced myself that it was a mask that was just presenting in a way that was safe for me to keep my mentality at a place that kept me sane, I say, without getting too crazed. And it took time for me to step outside of the societal structure of being feminine. I can't say for both of you all, but have you felt that coming into your own as a two-spirit person in this world of femininity seeing weak and having to learn that There's a lot of female presenting people in this room. Femininity is not weak. That is such a strong thing to have to do to navigate this world in. And men are like, we're the strong ones. No, you kick a pair of balls. Like, you know what? We will drop so quick.
Yeah.
Do you have any insight on learning? Because like you lived in the
Yeah,
church, and like you said, lived in the church. Sorry, you lived in a place that was structured a lot around the church, and like you said, it was very binary. You coming into your own, was there a lot of setbacks with that?
I think internally there was a lot of things to like slowly unpack and work through, and probably still am, will be for a while. I need a new therapist. If anyone knows, hit me up. But I think in a lot of ways, I don't necessarily feel for myself as if like femininity felt weak. Like the strongest people I know are all like women or very like femme, a lot of them. But I think there was something about like taking masculinity off of this pedestal or seeing it through less of like a structured lens. I don't know, it's weird. There's a lot of, I think, things growing up AMAB where I was like, this is how I have to be, or you'll face consequences, and there's shame, and there's like a box sometimes you'll put yourself into, and I think breaking out of that has taken a lot of time, and I'm still probably working on some of that.
Yeah, I want to say that like I'm not downplaying masculinity. There's a place for that in the world as well. Like there's strength in both. We just have to learn to equalize it, and that's where the discrepancy is.
I think I would agree with you too. For myself and my own story, I also grew up in a super Christian environment, and there were these very specific roles that males and females were expected to play. And I think at a really young age, I knew that I wouldn't play those roles. Like, I wanted to be a musician. I started playing piano. I loved to cook, and I loved gardening at a really young age. I did all of these things with my mom. And then when I tried to do things that my dad liked, like with trucks and stuff, I'm like, I don't know what the that is. Like, what's a motor? I don't even know. But, like, respect to people who can do mechanical things. We love you. Required in my world. But I don't know. I think, yeah, I guess in that way I was sort of knew growing up that I wouldn't fit into this mold. And I did grow up, I guess, with a lot of shame because of growing up in a super Christian space and place. But yeah, as soon as I went to university, it was like, right? Like, I met some great people in university, you know, more people like me. I met other Two-Spirit people. Went to Two-Spirit organization in Edmonton when I was there. Yeah, and then these people just sort of gave me or provided that guidance of what that meant from an Indigenous perspective, and yeah, it just made more sense to me. And then I had like a name that I could put to it, and being a Two-Spirit person, an Indigiqueer person, and just like, yeah, it just unfolded so delicately and beautifully.
Did it feel like that clicked for you like the first time you had heard it, or like the first time it was explained in a way to you?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Like, I think for a long, long time in my life, I was searching for something to have that identity. I knew, yes, I was attracted to males. I was a male. But I think there was more to it, and I didn't have the vocabulary. And so, yeah, like, owe it all to my friend James bringing me out to some culture camps at Saddle Lake and learning more about it from a Cree perspective. And yeah, just, it made sense. It clicked. It like felt good in my body. I tried it on. I was like, I'm going to keep this on, right?
Yeah. Looking in the mirror, putting on that hat.
Right. Oh, putting on these earrings. Yeah, I think, yeah. Now it's just a great place to be in. It's like, it makes sense. It feels good.
Feel whole.
I feel whole. Yeah.
Do you, Fable? Fable, do you identify as Two-Spirit?
For a long time, I didn't necessarily, like, probably up until a couple months ago, I was like, I don't know if I know enough about, like, what that means. And I mean, I know there's like a million different ways to be two-spirit, probably as many ways to be two-spirit as there are two-spirit individuals and people. But yeah, it was probably only up until like a couple months ago that I actually, I guess, kind of claimed that identity. I don't know if there's been really many times out loud where I've like said like, yeah, I'm two-spirit.
Yeah. It's like anything when you try something new on, you have to build confidence and power in it. And like, I think about the same thing as yourself finding a term that fit. I never fully identified with the word gay growing up. Like I knew that I wasn't straight, but the word gay just, it just didn't resonate with me. And I didn't want to say queer at the time because I'm sure people here of a certain generation know that queer in the 80s, I was born in the 80s, raised in the 90s, was a very negative term. And then that just felt dirty to me. So I had to get over that. Now I say queer all the time. But I remember the first time hearing two-spirit, and I was like, yeah, I think that's me. Yeah. Same thing. I tried it on, checked myself in the mirror, made sure those pants fit tight. And then, like a hug. And then I had to, the more I got to learn about it, because I think I heard it offhand once by a friend mentioning it. And I was like, what does that mean? And then they told me, and I was like, wow, I was like, maybe that is me. For the people in the room is there a raise of hands who doesn't know what two-spirit is? Okay, good. We'll explain to one person. Just kidding. But this is just like the world, There's always one person. Just kidding. Thank you for coming. I appreciate it. So the two-spirit for people that might need a refresher and for yourself, it is an Indigenous queer term that was brought about in a conference in the 90s in Winnipeg, Indigenous queer and lesbian conference they had. And they wanted to find a term that can unify all Indigenous queer people under one umbrella. Because at the time, Berdache was the word that was used a lot to describe queer people. And for the people that don't know what that means, that basically means like owned boy, like little slave sexual boy kind of thing. And that was the term that was described to two-spirit queer Indigenous people. And then, so we wanted to step away from that negative colonial term that was given to us and create something that was more beautiful and shows what our culture really shows. And they coined the term two-spirit. And I want to just say that's the only pan-Indian word that Indigenous people use. For people that don't know what pan-Indian means, it means it's a term that is used across the board for everyone. We don't want to do that with Indigenous cultures because there is over 600 Indigenous cultures in Canada and they're all different. So this is the one term that we've created that is to unify everyone. Now, some people in their own culture, when they renew their language, they know the word for it, and then they can use that word synonymously. If they want to be, it's easy just to go around to another Indigenous person these days and say, I'm two-spirit, then we get it. And then that reminds me now, sorry, do you want to say anything else before I just barrel on ahead? Good, I wanna, because you and I are of a generation. You're a little bit younger than we are. But how long ago was it when you first identified with two-spirit?
I think it was like 2000.
Yeah.
So like 25 years ago, yeah.
Yeah, same. Mine's like 2005, I think, around that area. I like to use this as an example of the growth of language and the growth of people in general. How many times when you came out or told people you were two-spirit when they asked you your identity or sexual identity and you had to explain it in 2000?
All the time.
Every single time?
Every single time.
And how much do you have to explain it now?
I think still a lot, but
there's
less.
Growth.
Less so, yeah.
Okay, out of 10.
Like 5, 4 or 5, yeah.
That's the same thing. It's like half or less, depending on what it is. If it's in a micro bubble with fellow queer people, a lot of times I don't have to do that.
Yeah.
But if it's in a room of cishet people,
what's two-spirit?
Yeah, what does that mean? And I was like, you have a supercomputer in your pocket.
Yeah.
Like, you have the ability to learn.
Google it.
Yeah, Google it, exactly. Anyways, I like to use that as an example of the growth of things, because it is a slow growth, but it's still growing. And I love that.
Yeah.
Do you love that?
I love that. I think it's like synonymous with like indigeneity and the growth of Indigenous culture that we've seen over the past, I don't know, 30 years, 40 years for me, and not having to explain what Indigenous means, right? Like, yeah.
It's true.
Yeah.
But also like the growth of Indigenous culture, the resurgence that we're having the last 10 years specifically is huge. And the regrowth of powwows. For the people that don't know, powwows were illegal in Canada up until oh my God, I can never remember the date, 89, 92? So like, it's probably like 89. It was illegal in Canada. And for the people that don't know, when we think about history, did you all know that Indigenous people were only allowed to vote since 84? We had to give up our culture before that to be able to vote. It was only since 84 that we were actually given a voice to keep our culture and vote. And that was the year I was born, so I was like, blessed.
It was you or your arrival brought
It was my
us?
arrival that brought on change. Not the years that they put into that beforehand, but my arrival. If we had an equivalent of a Messiah, this would be it.
It is. She hath risen.
Yeah, she has risen. Or birth. I forgot where I was going with this, but that was perfect.
I think
Okay, pardon?
for me, it's always cool to like learn some of the, well, I mean, it's not cool to learn the struggle that like folks have been through because like it's that a lot of that stuff had to go through in general. But I think like I was born in 2000. I think learning the history of like what
Same as old as your identity.
like learning what some of the like battles that people have fought for things that feel so basic and being able to like there are some things that I think have definitely like I've never known to question or recognize just how impactful some of those things were. So I think it's like really powerful to like think back on the strength of like folks who've been before. So it's super awesome to be able to, I mean, even just be chatting with some folks who are like been through a heck of a lot more than me. I mean, I don't think I would have necessarily started identifying as Two-Spirit if I hadn't started listening to your podcast. Just because there were so many people who were like talking about their experiences, and I was like resonating with little pieces here and there and everywhere, and it was nice. Yeah. So thank you.
And you know, your voice now might be that change for someone else as well.
Exactly.
Yeah. We can only hope.
Big responsibilities.
Responsibilities, they're endless.
Responsibility. I think that's the responsibility that I'm talking about in being a Two-Spirit person is, yes, we have some heavy to carry, but not as heavy as that the generations before us. And we're lightening the load of the generations that are up and coming. And I look at, some of the youth that I work with and the beautiful freedoms that they have and they exercise and exist in. It's inspiring.
It is inspiring.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful to see because sometimes a lot of us have been through some crazy and then generations before us has been through even crazier and then the generations ahead of us probably will go through some crazy but it's lessening a little bit, I feel, each year, or they're having more power to self-identify, which I think is a beautiful part. And sometimes I hate having to have conversations with people, but I always have to remind myself, not just with people, I mean like people about culture and identity and sexuality, but I always have to remind myself that these conversations may change minds and then they may do better. I'm not saying that my voice is like the be-all, end-all, but exactly, the Messiah, remember? But it's just the conversations that we all need to have, us as queer people, as Two-Spirit people, as Indigenous people, being vocal, I think, is the best form of change. It just shows that we're there and we're talking instead of sitting and being a bystander, because you don't want to be complicit to ignorance. Like if someone says something and if you're in a place of safety or power or a brave spot to be able to say something, I think we always should.
And having these platforms to be able to tell our stories and not other people telling our stories, that is a huge step too. Yeah, so thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Messiah. Yes, and just like having these platforms, I agree with that. When I started this podcast, I had no intention of ever being able to do it in a live setting, and I've done this a few times now, and it's beautiful when allies, such as the fantastic, beautiful Tara, has seen this, and she was like, we need to get the voice out. And then we have beautiful people like you all here, hopefully learning something, and if not, cool. You know those people that are like present but aren't listening?
I'm a teacher.
Oh, you get it. I want to pivot a little bit more because I want to get to a little bit more of your stories, but I want to first talk about you being a teacher and how cool is that? Have you talked about the growth of your students that you see all the time. Has there been a huge cultural shift? Because now they have cultural liaisons, Indigenous liaisons at schools.
Yes.
From when you started in the teaching field to now?
Well, I came from Alberta.
So yes.
Yes. Into BC, and like we can attest. There's like a friend of mine here who was in the ABED program when they were in middle school and elementary school, which was 20 years ago, we'll say. And the growth from then to now, we have Indigenous support staff and teachers in every school. And there are SOGI in BC. There are SOGI leads in every school. Most schools will have them, and so that support there for Indigenous students and to us and LGBTQIA plus students is there, and it's huge and it's a lot of work, and we're doing a lot of fighting on the ground and fighting behind the scenes to make some amazing things happen for these incredible students and families and community members that come into these spaces. So yeah, I think there has been a lot of change, and there's still a lot of change that needs to happen. Sometimes it can be glacially slow, but other times like things just like happen because there are incredible people out there doing this work, and there's some of those people in this room. And shout out to all of you who are holding space for young Indigenous people and to us and LGBTQIA plus young people. It's important and it's vital, and yeah.
It's work that needs to be done.
It's worth it, yeah.
I remember when I found out about the cultural liaisons at school, and I thought it was such a cool thing because we didn't have that when I was younger. And I thought it was beautiful that we had that. And then I remember I was talking to this one person who, in Kelowna, cultural liaison, she was a white girl. And then she was like, I feel like I'm taking someone's position. I was like, you are. She's like, well, it was given to me and I just don't like telling people that I'm white. People think that I'm Native. I was like, you are saying all the wrong things right now. And she's like, well, I just don't know what to do otherwise. I'm like, how about find another job? Like, I don't want to tell them, like, not doing anything. I was like, but you have no connection to the land around you other than coming from Ontario. I'm not saying you. This is the person I was talking about. Other than coming from Ontario, and now you are the cultural liaison for this entire school.
Yeah.
I was like, do you do any like groundwork? Do you go to powwows? Do you do this? She's like, no. I was like, I go online and look for things. I was like, girl, like you are really the epitome of taking Indigenous money out of Indigenous pockets. This just made me think of something like the Pretendian thing that's going on right now. Does anyone here know what Pretendian is? Okay, so Pretendian, just for people that don't know, and Fable, you're young, so I'll just say, I'm not saying you don't, you're a pretty smart person. It's someone that pretends to be an Indigenous person for any social, financial gain. Yeah. And it really came into the forefront about 3 years ago when those two Indian girls in Ontario were saying they had a grandmother in Nunavut, and they got their whole schooling paid for. And then they got caught in their final year because I forgot what they did. They tried to get more money or something. And then it just sparked this whole debate across Canada about quantifying indigeneity, which for Indigenous people, there has been no conversations like that. As soon as you said you're Indigenous, you're like, cousin. It's just instantly come into the fold. And now it's creating this huge conversation where do we put a stop to that? And I feel that is a colonial view that's coming in. And it's a very touchy conversation because it affects the Métis people mostly, because now they're asking Métis people, how do you quantify their bloodline before you let them into your tribe, your clan? And it's such a sticky conversation to have. Do you have any input on that? How do you feel about that? It's a crazy conversation. This is for you, Jesse.
Yeah, it is a crazy conversation. I mean, and there was the big one, like Buffy, right? Like,
oh yeah,
we
Buffy.
all love
like to
Buffy.
bring her up.
Some of us still love Buffy. I know some elders who are just like gung-ho still love Buffy. I am personally conflicted. I don't know which side I'm on. I don't know.
Because she literally said, well, it was not known. I'm like, so you knew that you were potentially not Indigenous, but you still said you were full Indigenous to get the career you had.
But the things she did.
But the things she did for Indigenous culture.
People, yeah. incredible.
It's exactly.
I
I'm
know.
conflicted as well. Love her music.
And
Hate
I
her.
think, yeah, I don't know, I was having this conversation with myself, actually, quite recently, just because of how present this conversation is in the media. And then look at myself, I'm like white passing, and like, how long will it be before someone is gonna be like, prove yourself, who are you, right?
Exactly. Start carrying your status card with you. It's
Right,
so
I
weird.
do. It's over there in my phone. Have my status card. I can tell you where I'm from. I can tell you my relations from. I did not grow up on a reserve. I did grow up on my traditional territory. My mom grew up on reserve. My mom went to residential school. My mom went to day school, and had all of that terrible experience. And that's part of my lived experience. But I don't know, there's like this we were talking about inner saboteur earlier, and just that piece sometimes in my brain is like, but are you? Right? So I don't know, that it's just been, because it's been so present in media, that conversation has been happening with myself in my head. Yeah.
It's such a hard conversation because, like you
Yeah.
said, normally when people say they're Indigenous, it's instantly like, welcome to the family.
Right.
Like, let's go to a potluck, let's go powwow together. And now this is a feel like of colonialism hitting too hard to home, where we're forgetting our heritage, is where they're putting that thought into our head of how do we quantify that. Or they're now saying that we have to do this. This is going to put it really terrible and probably put like a money aspect on it. But a lot of conversations that non-Indigenous folks say is like, oh, well, you just want more people in your tribe so you can get more money from the government. And you're like, well, that's not how that works.
That's not how that works.
It's like, it's also a trust. We're not taking your tax money, but they don't see that either. And it's created such a weird dialogue. And I've had this in multiple circles that I've been a part of, and they would ask us, like, well, what questions should we ask them to make sure that they're Indigenous or not? And I was like, I don't think we should be having these conversations. I think we should look at their actions. Because if I see a Métis person and they're just saying it to say it, then I'm going to have a little bit of reservations about it. Reservations, haha. But if they are putting in the work, then that to me tells me that they're family. You know what I mean? Like, I have so many Métis people, such as myself as a full Indigenous person, are people finding out their lineage and they're finding out their cultural background. They're taking part in powwows. They're just putting themselves in that situation of learning. Then I'm like, that's family. That's all we need right there, is if they're putting in the work to find out who they were, instead of just being, oh, now I'm Indigenous, I'm going to go to school. Be like, well, go to school anyways. But like, it's just, I feel like we should be looking at people's actions, not asking them to quantify who they are.
Agree.
Yeah. And it's such a hard conversation, even having it with another Indigenous person, because it feels so icky. It feels gross having to ask someone, how Indigenous are you?
50%.
Yeah, exactly. And you said you had that conversation in your head, be like, who's going to see that? And you said you're white passing, and girl, you ain't. Maybe. Maybe you are in a room full of white people, but if you ever go to like a native place, they'd be like, hey, cousin, like you have native features.
I can see your cheekbones.
Yeah, exactly. Turn around, be like, no ass, cousin. We have all our curves in our cheeks, nothing in the back. Okay, and I want to pivot more to you, and I want to bring it back to the religion conversation, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Only because religion and Indigenous people have a really crazy history, because you've brought up residential schools already, and your mother was in it. My mother was in residential school. So I always like to bring that up, because people, once again, think that it was so far in the past that it hasn't happened to anyone. And like, no, my mother was fully in Indigenous school, and I remember she used to tell me about how the soup was pretty much broth, how it was, and then every Sunday they would get a little piece of lard to put on their bread. Otherwise, it was just dry bread all the time. She said it was just like it was a feast. And I would think about it in my head about how the luxuries that I have now are the things that I can do, and how my mother thought a piece of lard was a luxury once a week. And I'm like, this is just crazy to think about how close to our past that is. Fable. You grew up in the church. And I have a bit of history with the church, not too much, but I've always been not for it. I just, thankfully, actually, no, I lived in a situation where they didn't like that. But I was able to voice my concerns because my dad wasn't a religious person, but like my mother was, and I feel that's a bit of indoctrination. I've got her out of it now because I'd be like, what do you believe in? She's like, God. I was like, why? She's like, because I was taught. I was like, who taught you, Mom? and then she'd be like, well, is that the I was like, exactly. We need to stop that line of thought right now. It's like, let's talk about the creator. And then my mother was one of those people that would equate the creator to Jesus. And I was like, no. That's not it. I was like, the creator is just everything. And then I felt funny having to have that conversation with my mother, but I feel like my mother pushed that all so far down that she didn't have that connection to it anymore. And now we have that moment of seeing the creator as just life itself, as the circle of life is we will die, we'll feed something, plant will grow and we'll feed a deer and then we'll eat that deer. It's just that life that keeps going. My favorite one analogy is trees, because I think it's so fantastic that trees spit out oxygen and then take in carbon dioxide. And then we spit out carbon dioxide and take in oxygen. Oh, such a symbiotic relationship. It's so cool how the world works if we just look at how connected we are to everything. This is way off topic when I was going to talk to you about Fable.
That's how my brain
sometimes I
works.
just get into
That's
a
how
little
my brain
tangent
works.
and I'm like, God, this sounds so good. Keep going.
Getting it.
But can we talk about your relationship with the church and stepping outside of it?
Yeah.
Because you said that you've stepped away. Is this okay to ask?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I moved 3 provinces. I moved 3 provinces away to step away. So yeah, I'm more than happy to talk about it a little bit. Yeah, no, I grew up fully in the LDS church. Some folks know it as like the Mormon church. My grandparents, or my grandma, I think, found it when my mom was like 13 years old. My grandparents were like in the military. They're moving around a lot, drinking a lot. And so they found God. And that like gave them a value system and something to do all the time, because they do stuff all the time. And sorry, the question was like my relationship with stepping away from the church?
Or with church, however you want to
Yeah.
speak about it.
Yeah, so like for 15 years, ever since I was a baby, every Sunday, and then when I got to like the age where they would do like Boy Scouts and stuff like that, it'd be like I'd be doing things on Wednesdays and Saturdays sometimes, and like depending on whatever calling they'd want to give or things to go volunteer and do, which is great. I mean, there's like a pretty cool sense of community in church. It's something that like I almost wish I could find more readily available without having to go to church. But when I started high school in grade 9, they put me in seminary, which was like extra rigorous Bible study to prep me for going on a mission. Because for the Mormons, when you turn like 18 after you graduate high school, you go somewhere in the world for like 2 years. And you do like the tracting, the door knocking, the like volunteering, all of those things. And so when I started grade 9, I was starting high school, which was a big shift for me. But I also had to go to the church every day at 6:30 in the morning to do Bible studies for like an hour. Wow. And I think it was at that point where I had, I guess, stopped just kind of doing the things that I needed to be doing. And I stepped back because I was in it so much. I stepped back and I was like, well, what does this mean for me? What do like all of these pieces mean? Do I agree with this? How do I feel about all of it? And my body and like my mind and I guess my spirit and everything were just like, no. Like,
Just a visceral reaction.
yeah, such a visceral reaction. I mean, I moved 3 provinces away because I was just like, I have to get away from this. And I didn't see any way I could step away from it without it causing like issues with where I was living. There are definitely some values that I think are super cool. I know some really awesome Christians, and the majority of them who I relate to more are just like, do the teachings of Christ and like love your neighbor and do all of those things. Like I think, if Jesus was a dude out that way, he was really radical. So cool they had to kill him. But like there are a lot of things with like some organized religions that just like didn't vibe with me. I don't think if I had gone to transition in the Mormon church, I would have had membership privileges taken away. I would have been instructed by the bishopric to not even change my name and socially transition. And so there were like those pieces that were starting to bubble up in me that like I was pushing down because of the environment that I was in. And I don't think if I had left, I would have ever really been able to come into those things. I think I would have just been at shame and pushing those down for the rest of my life.
Which is crazy. I don't want to take away from the need for everyone to believe in something.
Yeah.
And I feel that's there's a lot of people scared of death or the great beyond. They're like, there has to be more to life. Like, why can't we just live right now? Like, what's going on? Who cares what happens after you're dead? You're dead. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't care. I won't know you. I'll be dead. But I do believe people need to have something to believe in. And I hear what you say when you said that we love the people, some cool Christians that are in the church. And I agree, I've met some cool people that are there, but I still fall back onto that complicit conversation.
Yeah.
If you are going to these churches and they're actively saying things and you're not standing up in those situations, are you not still a part of that hate?
100%.
And like it's crazy to me. I remember I've always been a very flamboyant queer person, and I was at church. I remember I went when I was, I think, 15 or 16. It was whenever they were going to try to pass same-sex marriage.
Yeah.
And they were trying to get all these signatures to not allow it to happen. And I remember being in church with my friends that brought me there. And the bishop, I knew the bishop. I went to their house, the bishop, whatever the head guy was. Like, he was there. And I remember, like, I would go to their house all the time. We'd have dinner. Like, he was friends with my parents. My dad wasn't super religious, but they were friends. And I wasn't fully out yet, but I was very, very noticeably gay. And I remember being there and him passing around this sheet being like, we need you all to sign this because we don't want same-sex to be passed. And I remember him saying that, and his eyes ran across the room and then looked at me. And I was like, you had dinner at my house. But I remember feeling so hurt in this situation because I knew so many people in this small town church and not one of them said anything. And I think that was the straw that broke the camel's back, the last nail in the coffin. Where I was just like, religion's not for me. If I'm going to be in a room full of people that I thought were my friends or that were in my corner, actively have someone say that you don't want same-sex to be married, and then they're actively signing the sheet, it was crazy. And I don't want to discredit all the people that believe in religion, but I feel like if you want to listen to the teachings of your God and you're not going to speak up and you just want to pick and choose the parts that work for you, I feel like that's kind of up.
It's hypocritical.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing your story with that,
Yeah,
Maple. I
you
don't
bet.
want to
All good. I think like it is one of those things. I'm glad you brought up the like complicity too, because I've had a lot of conversations, particularly with my grandma, who I want my grandma in my life. She wants me in her life. She's not gonna she doesn't dead name me or misgender me. She was like one of the first people in my family from the older generations who did that, and I was like, that's great. And so we've had like a lot of big conversations about it. But I do come back to some of that complicity stuff all the time because I've like brought up stuff with the church or the reasons I have issues. Because she's like, if you need community there in Trail, there is a church. And I'm like, I know.
She's like, I mailed it to you, the
But,
address.
Yeah. But like, there are just some of those pieces that I like, that my value system in that doesn't cross. And it does kind of feel icky in a way to like see so many people who are being like, oh no, but the church just moves slowly. And it's like, sure, Jesus would be mad at you right now.
Yeah, like what's that big meme that's going around now? Like if Jesus was alive nowadays, the conservatives would hate him.
100%.
And it's true. Like you said, he was, according to the teachings of the Bible, a radical. He wanted change. He loved his hookers. You know what I mean? Like, he was a good guy.
12 dudes.
All dudes. I say a joke all the time at brunch because it's on a Sunday and I think it's great. And then the joke goes, I don't remember where I heard it from, but I'm paraphrasing and stole it from someone from years and years ago, where Jesus is the biggest queer icon for gays because whoever can get nailed for 3 days and still walk, amazing.
I
say
feel
it.
dirty for laughing at
Yeah.
but hilarious.
And like how they sexualized Jesus on the cross.
Oh my God.
Oh, I remember masturbating to that when I was younger.
Yeah, I have a teacher friend who taught in Catholic school for years, and she would only put up pictures of hot Jesuses in her classroom. And they only had to be hot Jesus. She would not put ugly Jesuses in her
Never.
classroom.
If he didn't have a six-pack, I don't want him on my wall.
Exactly. Terrible, I know.
And then if you turn the cross upside down, it's like you're 69ing, right?
There you go.
I know you're a teacher.
Okay.
Sorry if that offended anyone.
I'm
That was
not
funny for
offended.
me. All right, let's we're getting close to the end of our time here, but I do want to discuss a bit more with you about your cultural journey. Fable, this is going to be directed at you because you said you're learning who you're becoming, right? Are
Well,
you?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like learning, trying to become, surviving,
All those fun things.
struggling. Yeah.
So relatable.
Yeah, sometimes it's just figuring stuff out. No, lately I've been trying to do a lot of like digging, reconnecting with family. I went back, I was home this summer for 2 weeks, just spending time mostly with like my sister and my mom and my grandparents. But I was really hoping to like connect more with my cousins and learn some more about like my ancestry and stuff. I grew up away from my traditional land, traditional language, traditional culture. Mom used to always try and get us out to things. Like we went to powwows a bunch. There was one time Mom took a job where she was like working a food truck to go to powwows so she could drag us around so we could be at more powwows, which was great. But like reconnecting with that has felt tricky being so far away from it. Like I'm like, I don't want to step into places and take up space. I'm not sure what pieces to learn. I think for most things I've been feeling lately where it's just like, I should just show up. You know, like if I'm wondering about something, I can ask. I can use my big girl bark. But yeah, sometimes it's a struggle. Like there are lots of things where it's like, I don't know what I don't know in a lot of ways. And I don't know where exactly to start finding some of those lines of connection. It's been hard. There's some like pretty awesome community locally in a way. Like I've done some beading with the like Métis group in Trail, which has been lovely, and there's some awesome people I can go to talk to, but I'm also tired a lot of the time, and I sometimes feel upset with myself that I'm not doing more, but I'm also just like, girl, you're just trying to live right now and get through it. Yeah.
And everyone's journey of cultural identity is their own journey. I don't think we should ever take anyone else's viewpoint or feel that it has to go at a certain pace. It's however you take it into yourself and express it. It could be with any identity, like sexual, cultural, religious, but anything like that. I want to touch base on what you just said earlier because I had the same feeling as you did because I grew up in Yukon. I now live in the Okanagan, and I let it hold me back for so long where I was like, well, this isn't my traditional territory. I shouldn't be in this space or I shouldn't learn it. And then now I've taught myself like, no, I can still come here and go to the powwows. I can still participate and I can still learn the language around me as a sign of respect. But it was in my head for so long. I'd be like, oh, this isn't for me. I'm still just a visitor on this land. I need to be back in my own traditional territories to honor my ancestors. And I think the way to do that is just to be there, just to be present. And if you're tired, don't need to go. You don't have to beat yourself up for it. I've said no to multiple powwows because I was like, oh, I'm gonna go get paid somewhere else.
Yeah.
And I think that's okay. I don't think you should ever beat yourself up on the journey that you're on. Just take it how you are. Take it as being here itself is, I think, an amazing step forward of you just being cool with yourself.
Yeah, agree.
Yeah. And I'm very grateful that you came here and decided to do this with us.
Thank you.
Who here all knows Fable? I know, they're a pretty cool individual, and I remember the first time I met them, and then when they said that they were going to be here, there was a little bit of a maybe, maybe not, and I was like, no. If any of you know my friend LB, I was like, you message them right now, and you tell them that they need to be a part of it. And I'm very grateful that you decided to spend this hour with us. Thank you.
I am as well, yeah. Thank you so much.
We're not done yet. They're still going to be here for a moment. Now I want to pivot over to Jesse. We talked a bit about you had to go to university to find like your two-spirit identity. Were you really connected to culture before you went?
Yes and no. Sometimes it's like difficult to talk about these things.
Me too. You can put boundaries on it.
I'd love it. I think because of the Christian home that I grew up in, we didn't have a lot of access to culture. So when my mom married my dad, all of these things happened. And, you know, she lost her identity because she had to give it up because of 1972. That's what you did as an Indigenous woman if you married a non-Indigenous woman. And growing up, I knew that I was Blackfoot. In grade 7, there is a chapter in the social studies curriculum about Blackfoot people. And they asked me if my mom would come in and talk about it. And I was like, okay, sure, yeah, she will. And she brought scones and jam, right? And so I had this knowledge yes, I know that I'm Indigenous, and I know my grandparents, I know my aunties and my uncles and my cousins and all of that extended family. And we did do some small cultural things growing up outside of my own home, but there wasn't, I didn't feel like I had the freedom because of the Christian, and I'll use the word indoctrination, to be able to practice culture like I wanted to. And so it wasn't until 1999 when I went to university and was like, I'm gay and I'm Indigenous. And I had now this freedom to come in to identity and step into identity, multiple identities and intersecting identities. And it just was like a flood, right? Like just all of these things, and language and knowledge and ceremony and culture and beating and all of these things, right? And now it's just like, it's part of me, it's who I am. And I am confident, minus the saboteur some days, but yeah, and the work that I do is in service to Indigenous students and Indigenous families and Indigenous communities and queer students and queer families and queer community. And that's the reason, and it's given me purpose, right? It's given me like those feet to be able to walk on, and yeah, I'm happy to do it. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. That's fantastic. It's sometimes hard traversing the landscapes that we're in at the time, and then when we get older we can look back and see what we've done, and we're like, if I wouldn't have done those things, I wouldn't be where I am today. You said you're in service to the community you are. All the things you went through is now part of you as an identifier, like it's just you. And I agree with that so much. And I want to bring a little moment to your I'm gay thing, because I had the same thing, because I grew up in the Yukon in northern BC, and I was still flamboyant, but I still dressed how I needed to around it. And I remember moving to Calgary, and I was like, I don't know anyone here. Next thing I know, I'm wearing crop tops, low-rise jeans. It was like 2001. I remember like tying ribbons around my pants and having it flowing down, and then it like the pride flag was like flying outside of my identity everywhere I went. And thinking about adding culture into that, it took me going back to university as well to realize, oh, like maybe my culture is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Because it pushed it aside for so long. Because you grew up in the 90s, 80s, 90s.
Sure did.
That was during a time where identifying with Indigenous was frowned upon, essentially. And I don't know how it was when you moved out of your small town, but I remember not telling anyone I was Indigenous because they instantly thought I was a drunk. So I would tell people that I was Filipino. So I would just be like, I'm Filipino, or I'd just be like Asian, and then there would be no questions asked. Right. But as soon as I would say that I was Indigenous, people would either think that I was going to steal from them or that I was a drunk. I was a drunk, but and I probably would have stolen from you. So there was some, with myself personally, probably some truth with their stereotypes, but it was, and maybe I did it as a form of protest, not the drinking part, but the stealing. You can call me a thief? I'll steal your prized possession.
Back.
Yeah, exactly. Indian giving, I'll do that to you. You gave me that title. So, I forgot where I was going with that again.
Love it.
just identity, coming into terms with ourselves
Yeah.
and being true. Did you not identify with Indigenous when you first moved away from your culture, or was that something?
I did. Like, I always knew.
Yeah.
It was there, and I got the funding to go to university, right? Like, and I did all of that, but it wasn't until I moved to university where I was like, and I was given opportunity, right? I met other Indigenous people in like the city center at university. There was I forget what it was at the U of A, but like the Native Center there, and meeting my friend James, it was like a huge aspect of me coming into culture as well. And that's when I knew, like, okay, now I need to start listening to the stories. So I connected more with my granny and my aunties and my uncles. I asked my mom more questions about where we come from, and she like knows her lineage, right? And who's who in the family and where we come from and whatnot. And so I think, yeah, I don't know. It was there. It always was there.
Yeah.
And now I wear it, right? Like, look, right? And I do this for representation as well, right?
Yeah, to be seen.
To be seen, and for other people to see, especially younger people and young Indigenous students, to have that representation. It's harm reduction, right?
Yeah,
I always
harm
talk about
reduction.
this. It is harm reduction.
I believe in that, like, wholeheartedly, because I'm thinking about now how you talked about how you moved away and you met your friend James. Was that? Growing up, it was very, very hard to find an Indigenous role model.
Yeah.
Like someone that was I don't want to, like, this language sounds so bad. Someone that was doing well. Someone that was
super
succeeding.
Indigenous.
Yes. Yeah. And I remember now. Sorry, not remember. Me now, who I am and who I've become and who I'm becoming, I always remind myself that I want to be that representation that I never had.
Yes.
I am now at such a healthy place with my life that I hope Indigenous people see me and be like, this is a possibility for myself. Because I remember growing up, where I grew up, thinking that my life was just going to be like everyone else around me. I was going to get a girl knocked up, and then I'm just going to live on a house and just do nothing but drink. You know what I mean? And that's such a terrible stereotype, but that was so prevalent around me that I thought that was going to be my future. And you said representation matters, the harm reduction. And now we have social media out there, and we have so many Indigenous role models that it's so empowering to see that, because it shows healing and growth. And I feel like you two are that as well, being that representation that we needed when we were younger.
Absolutely.
And it's such like a mind-blowing thing to think that we are now who we wish we saw.
I think that's that responsibility piece I'm talking about. And being a two-spirit Indigenous person is like, yes, I'm doing this because I have to, but also just to be, right?
Yeah. Just living is creating change. And it's such a fucked up thing to think that, you know what I mean? Like, we're in a place where well, it's great. We're just living, and that is creating change. It's fantastic. I hope one day in the future that everyone can just be. And it's not a conversation. We're gonna complain about the weather together, because that's the crazy thing.
In our ribbon skirts, shelling peas on the deck.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We can talk about gardening. I don't know.
Smoking cigarettes.
Yeah, we need to get to a point where identity is not a conversation starter or a conversation ender or a political debate. We need to get to that point where people are just people. And will that ever happen in our lifetime? I don't know. I can't see the future, but I have hope. I have dreams. And if not, I will just continue living in my little micro bubble and forget that racism and homophobia and transphobia exists. And then I'll be presented with it in face to face and be like, oh yeah. Forgot that shitty people are still around. Because I don't know if many people here or with yourself as well. Do you ever find that you surround yourself with amazing, cool people that you do forget that there's sometimes shitty people out there, and then it's presented to you, and you're like, "Holy, that just happened."
Who are you? Why are you saying those words? 100%.
Go away.
Go away.
Yeah.
Okay, we have reached the end of our time. I wish we can just keep talking more and more. You two are fantastic.
Thank you.
Is there any final words that you'd love to say to your new fans? That's what I say all the time at a
New
show. I say that every time I have a drag show. But this isn't a show, and I feel that was just muscle memory with my mouth.
Yeah. It's like talking to my younger self, I
That's
think.
right. Give some words of wisdom. Give some
Right.
anti-advice.
I know. I just like, don't it up.
Yeah, exactly.
But also it up, right?
Yeah.
Like,
But learn from
things
your
need to
mistakes.
be up,
Yeah.
right?
If you're gonna up, learn how to either up better,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
or it's a lesson for other people not to up. One or the other.
Around and find out.
There you
Take some
go.
time to find out afterwards. Just
Yeah,
a little bit.
exactly.
Just a little bit.
And we're allowed to make mistakes.
Yeah.
I do it all the time.
Yeah.
I was told at a young age that my mouth was going to get me in trouble. And now I get hired to do this.
There you go. She gets paid.
So that's just taking your strengths and making mistakes, but refining those mistakes to make them strengths. And I firmly believe in that. Thank you, Fable. Thank you, Jesse. You two have been fantastic. I adore you both, and I'm so grateful that you were willing to take the time to share space with me, to share parts of your story with these fantastic people who decided to show up today. And to the people that did show up today, I appreciate it because we get conversations all the time of non-Indigenous people saying that they want to help or they want to make change or they want to be able to create the platform for Indigenous people again, and then they don't show up to these things. They have all the talk and all the bravado of wanting to do something, and then they don't. Because I feel these conversations are amazing. We had just a really, I call these like anti-chats. We had like a little anti-chat here, just between like kin having a moment. But there was lessons that were said throughout this that I'm hoping that you were able to take from that a little bit, so we can all grow together to become a stronger society. So give it up for yourselves as well. And then before I say goodbye, I do need to give it up for Tara for being amazing and organizing this. And they are such a sweet human, and they are a part of Nelson Pride. So whenever Nelson Pride does things like this, remember that it's all volunteer work, and they are working hard to create these things for change. And thank you, Tara, for being so cool. And then the beautiful people up there, it's Terry and Matt, for doing sound and lighting and setting up these chairs, and then Dustin with Rebellious Unicorns for being so cool. Thank you all so much. And I just want to once again give my whole heart thank you to both of you, and I hope we stay friends. I know I'll see you around because you're going to become so much more involved with the performance. I feel it. And then Jesse, you're just really cool.
Thank you.
I feel like we should just like sit down, have a tea, and just shoot the where cameras aren't there, and you're going to say a lot more filthy things. That's right. We have history, like cultural history and experiences I'm sure we could have a good laugh about. And yeah, I'm done. Thank you all, everyone. My name's Ella Lamoureux, and I hope you had a good time with us.
Yay.
That was so lovely.
Thank you.